What's up, y'all? This is Onya. In today's video, we're talking tech. Yes, more specifically, I'm going to be reviewing Canon's G7X and the Canon M50. So if you're watching this video, chances are that you are interested in either one of these videos, or you just want to hear me talk, whatever. I think these cameras are in the same category in terms of specifications and, most importantly, price point. So if you are in the market for a new small size camera that can record video, these two are strong contenders, and in the end, I'm going to give my opinion on which one I think is better. So stay tuned. So first things first, who are these cameras good for? I think these cameras are made especially for vloggers, content creators, even your average Joe who's looking for a small size camera, more specifically a video camera, that is not going to draw attention to them as they're out in the world recording themselves, right? So I have a DSLR camera and they're so big. They're very large, and oftentimes I don't really care to bring them out in public, especially for vlogging purposes, just because, I mean, it draws a lot of attention, right? So something like the G7X, which is super small, you take this out, no one's really gonna notice you. They may stare for a second, but then they'll move on. But it's very inconspicuous, which I love about it. Even the M50, you can take this out in public and you're not gonna draw much attention to yourself. So like I said, this is a great camera for influencers or vloggers looking to do more vlogging out in the real world and use a small size camera that won't be cumbersome or won't draw a lot of attention to you. They're also great if you're not looking to break the bank, okay? So they're not exactly cheap, but they're more than $100, but they're not ridiculously expensive either. I think they're both priced around $500, $600, which is pretty good for the quality that they deliver. So that is a selling point for both of these cameras. I consider them to be relatively affordable. All right, so let's get into the nuts and bolts, the meat, the tech specs of each of these cameras. So let's just start from the physical specs of the camera. The first thing you'll notice is the size. So these are, I would say, significantly different in size. The Canon G7X Mark II is a very, very small camera. You can see that kind of held in my hand. It's not even bigger than the size of my hand. On this side, you have the M50. It's definitely bigger, as you can see. It almost takes up my full hand. So in that regard, if you're looking for something super, super small that can maybe fit in your pocket, fit in your purse, they both can. However, this one's probably gonna do a better job of just sliding into the crevices somewhere, because that lens is retractable and it retracts all the way into the camera until you turn it on. This one, that's about as low as it's gonna be. So you probably can't stick this into your pocket unless you're wearing like baggy jeans. Again, if size is important to you, then you might wanna go with the G7X. Next thing, let's talk about the back of this camera. The G7X has a screen on the back, so does the M50. I think that's pretty standard these days. They're both 3 inches, and they're also touchscreen. Yes, Eureka! If you live in life with a camera that doesn't have a touchscreen, let me tell you, it will change your entire life. Another thing to note about the screens, this is how they pop out. So for the Canon G7X, it pops up and out like that, which I think is pretty cool when you're recording. You can just easily see, and it doesn't make the camera any longer. You can just easily see what you're recording, which is a blessing. How many times have you recorded only to find out that you look a hot mess? But this one is your standard pop out that way, and this one actually swivels so you can turn it at different angles as well. Both cameras also have different shooting modes that you can select. Your standard shooting modes like portrait. The M50 has a pretty cool filters that you can apply. This one does as well, but not as extensive as the M50. So that is definitely a slight advantage for this one. We can talk really briefly about the battery life. One of the first things I heard when I purchased the G7X Mark II was that the battery life isn't that great, and apparently the same applies to the M50. However, you can buy backup batteries. They're not very expensive, and keep those on you at all times. Here's where things really start to get different. I mentioned earlier that the lens on the G7X is retractable. One more thing to note is that it does not come off. So what you get is what you get. On the M50, this lens actually comes off. You can actually use your standard lenses with this, but you should note that you have to use a mount. So here's what a mount adapter looks like for the M50. And what you would do is essentially take that and slide that on first. Boom. So this one is my 50mm lens that I use on my DSLRs. So I can just snap that into place. And now this camera is equipped with a 50mm lens. I think that is a good and a bad thing depending on what you're looking for. So if you're looking for something small size, as you start to put these lenses on this M50, the camera gets a lot bigger. And this is a 50mm lens, so it's a bit smaller. But imagine if you want to use an 85mm lens, that one's definitely longer. So it's kind of like a blessing and a curse almost, because yeah, you're gonna get better quality video, better quality pictures, but then it defeats the purpose of purchasing a smaller camera almost. Again, depends on what you're looking for, whether that's a win or a loss for you. For me personally, I was looking for a small size camera. That one gave this one a slight advantage because the camera retracts and makes this camera very, very small. Okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper into the specs of the lenses because I think this part is important. The Canon G7X Mark II has a maximum aperture of 1.8. So that's an f-stop of 1.8, which if you're like me, that rang a bell in your ear because you're like, yes, okay, because 1.8 is gonna get you that blurry background. For the M50, it has a maximum aperture of 3.5. Now that's not bad. It's actually still a good aperture. However, 1.8 is magical for me, right? 3.5 is still gonna get you that blurry background. What I do like about the M50 is that it actually has a setting that allows you to go in and select blurred background. It does something within the camera that blurs that background even more for you, which I found to be pretty effective. So kind of balances out a little bit. So I think they're kind of tied on that. But yeah, maximum aperture of 3.5, 1.8 over here, and there's zoom lenses, so they can zoom in and out. So when it comes to retracting the lenses with the M50, there's a little notch right here on this lens that allows you to turn the lens and then it shoots out. With the G7X Mark II, all you have to do is turn it on and that bad boy pops out right there, and you can see how big it gets with the lens exposed. So for the rest of these specs, I'm actually going to hop on to each of these cameras to show you things like how they perform in low light, how they handle close-ups, outdoor video, the sound, all of that good stuff. Goodbye to this view and let's hit the road. What is up, guys? So right now I am on the Canon G7X Mark II. Look how amazing that looks, right? I hope so. So right now I'm going to talk about autofocus. So the G7X has two focus modes. It has tracking autofocus and it has single point autofocus. Right now it is on tracking autofocus. So it tracks my face. Wherever I move, the focus moves with me. Hey girl, hey. For the single point autofocus, when you select that one, the focus stays in one location. So it doesn't track you wherever you go. If you move, that focus is going to stay wherever you originally set it. So that's something to note. I can zoom in. I can zoom back out. And there you have it. Another really cool feature on this camera, and I'm trying to back it up because it's all about astros, okay? Another cool feature of this camera is that it allows for you to do time-lapse videos within the camera. The M50 does that as well, but let me show you what that looks like when you actually put that into effect. All right, guys, so here I am on the Canon M50. I don't know if you guys can see a difference in quality. I won't know until I get it on the actual computer, but this is what it is. This is on the standard kit lens. It has the same auto tracking that the G7X had. Quality looks pretty good to me. Maybe a little bit better. I don't know, but I'm kind of blind. So you guys have to tell me, oh, I look good. Yes. So I am walking around outside to give you guys an idea of what the sound sounds like when you're actually out and about in nature. I of course don't know what it sounds like until I get it back on my computer, but hopefully it's not too bad. I do like how it's looking though. So I have just switched over to the G7X and just wanted to show you guys the way that it sounds compared to the M50 when out again in nature. I also want to show you guys my neighborhood. Isn't it beautiful? Here's a really nice building right here with a cactus. How many people can say they have a cactus in their neighborhood? Not very many, right? right, so let's wrap this up. I'm a little sweaty now because I was outside recording some stuff on these two cameras, but in conclusion, which camera is better? I'm of course a little biased because I actually bought the G7X Mark II and rented the M50, so it's slight bias, but I think it comes down to preference once again. I personally wanted something super small that I can take out easily, that won't draw a lot of attention to myself, which is why I went with the G7X. It's small, has a flip out screen, superb quality. I'll let you guys decide. You guys saw the comparisons. I think the G7X is a slightly better in terms of video quality. Picture quality too. It has a slight edge, I think a big edge actually, and that's very important to me. It also has a very big edge when it comes to low light environments. I think the G7X blew the M50 out of the water. It was phenomenal when I tested it in low light. Now, for the M50, what I love about the M50 is that you can swap out the lens, which is pretty cool. That's it? No. Also with the M50, the audio is far better than the audio on the G7X. Just miles and miles apart. I'm not sure what happened with the G7X, but you noticed in the comparison videos that when I went outside, it picked up on so much wind noise. It was kind of crazy. Whereas the M50, it was very clear. And on top of that, you're able to add an external mic to the M50 if you need to. With the G7X, I can't do that. That's a big letdown on my end. I have to find a way to work around that, especially if I want to record outdoors in a windy area. And it wasn't even that windy, which is kind of odd that it picked up on so much wind. I got to figure that out because I do like the quality of the G7X over the quality of the M50. And again, my preference was for a smaller camera. I had issues with the M50 in terms of like where to put it when I was working with the G7X outdoors. It's a bit more bulky, and that's not what I was personally looking for. So outside of the audio issue, which is a big failing, I do prefer the G7X. But I will leave it up to you. I think they're both phenomenal cameras, priced very similar. It all comes down to what you prefer and what you're looking for out of your camera. As always, it's been a pleasure. If you have any comments, concerns, want me to look into any other camera, lens, whatever, let me know down below and I will do my best to make that happen. If you enjoyed this video, which took a lot of time to make, you guys, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. All right, bye guys.